Well, hello and welcome to Practical Leadership Podcast, where leaders share tools and practical advice to make you a better leader today. My name is Max Kozlovsky. I'm going to be your host. And today I have an extraordinary guest with me. So to know this guy is to know a multifaceted human being. And today I'm kind of have to focus on just one of his multifacets, and that is this energy and focus and commitment and passion that he has around nonprofits and the nonprofit work that he has done. He's been working with nonprofits for over 30 years. He's helped over 100 of them. He's working with 12 or more at any given time. And what's amazing is that he goes into these nonprofits, he goes into the boards, he goes into the events and slashes and breaks record after record. He brings in and gets more people engaged. He gets more support. He gets more love and care, and ultimately raises more dollars that end up benefiting the people in the communities that these nonprofits work. He's won multiple awards, too many to mention. If you want to go take a look at the list of all of them, I'll give you his website in a couple of minutes. But he has won the San Antonio Notables Award, the Anne Frank Inspirer Award, Dream Voice Award, People Who Make San Antonio Great Award, and many, many, many others. Everyone, my friend, Howie Nestel.
Max, thank you for that beautiful eulogy. If you're available at the time of my death, I would love for you to be in charge of delivering the eulogy. How about that? Can I put you down?
I certainly be happy to do that, but I get a feeling you're going to be around for a very, very, very long time. Very long time.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Max, and thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. It's always fun having a conversation with you. You and I get into these long philosophical discussions, and this will be no different, I'm sure. So thank you for inviting.
Well, we're all very lucky to have you here. So, Howie, to get us started today, let's talk about something that has happened, something really cool, something really good that has happened in your world in the last 6 months or so.
Hey, how about if we say in the last 6 hours? This morning, I go down to City Hall here in San Antonio, Texas, for a kickoff and press conference for the Cesar Chavez Legacy Foundation celebration. For the first time in 31 years, the Mexican-American civil rights leader is going to be recognized by having a citywide holiday for the first time here in 2022. And I was part of the conference. My company's doing a logo and a website for a concert, and some of the musicians were there today. And it was just so moving. And I didn't know this, but one of the speakers this morning at the press conference was Mayor Ron Nirenberg's wife, Erica Prosper, and she was a migrant farm worker as a child. And she spoke beautifully and eloquently this morning, very passionate about the Cesar Chavez Legacy Foundation and how it benefits youth here through their foundation, as well as the moving forward La Causa, for protecting those unrecognized heroes that are migrant farm workers. So, I mean, that was super inspiring and very exciting to be a part of something like that. So, and that was in the last 6 hours.
So it's super interesting, because one thing that I consistently hear about you is standing up for those people that can't quite speak for themselves, need an extra hand, need a little bit extra help. When did you first recognize that was something that was in you, that it was something that you cared for and wanted to do something about?
I didn't recognize it until, like, I would say the closer to the second half of my life, if you will. But from a young age, I found that I was deeply affected and impacted by things that happened to others that I thought were unfair. I'll give you an example. When I was 12 years old, my cousin Kimberly, who was 3.5, passed away of leukemia. And I thought, wow, what an unfair hand she was dealt. Here's a child that gets a disease, an illness that takes her life, at such a beautiful young age of 3.5. And I thought that's unfair. Is there something that I can do? And then subsequently from that, I got involved with nonprofits and charities and events and camps and things that helped children battling cancer. And I've been doing that for 30 plus years. I just didn't recognize that it was something that was in me until much later. I just thought, oh, if there's something I can affect, something I can do, help raise some money, awareness, put together an event, make life a little bit easier for people who are homeless, battered women and children shelter, something like that, I'm in.
So it's super interesting because it reminds me of a lot of the leaders that I talked to. Something happened in their life that gave them a cause, gave them a purpose, gave them this feeling of them needing to be an agent of change, an agent for better. So when you think about the nonprofit work that you do and helping others, what is your mindset? What is your approach in terms of how you want to contribute? How does Howie Nestel show up, and what is it that you're trying to get across?
So I'm going to answer that second, but I'm going to rewind here a little bit to what you said about leaders and something that happened to them, some kind of catalyst to get them inspired or motivated to go out and do something, right? To improve the world. Now, having been on this planet for more than 5 decades, I can tell you things happen to everybody. So these signals, these catalysts happen to everybody. It's what you choose to do with it. Does it cause you to clam up and bury your head in the sand? Or do you, come out of the bunker and come out fighting and start doing something to improve the society in which you live and help those who are least fortunate? I didn't look at it so much as things happening to me as I looked at things happening to others. And I saw that as an injustice. And I recognized that if I had the wherewithal, and this is where I'll answer your second question, if I have the wherewithal, the means, the connections, the know-how to improve somebody else's situation, then it's not only my preference to do so, but it's actually my obligation to do so in a weird cosmic God, karma, nature sort of way. Then I'm obligated to do something. And so I used to think that the best way to help is to help the way the nonprofits want you to help, which is by stroking a check. But then I came to realize that the amount I can give as the world's poorest philanthropist is minuscule compared to what some of these big donors give, writing checks for 100 grand, $1 million, whatever it is. However, I can use my time, my talent in, say, marketing, my connections to help bring together a much stronger force than the few dollars I'd be able to donate and have a much bigger impact. Case in point, Cattle Barons Gala, which you were a part of back in 2012 for the American Cancer Society. Well, I can only write a check for so much money, but I can get people to donate items and I can rally people together to create what then became in 35 years, a record-breaking live auction where we brought in well over 100 grand in 43 minutes. All net proceeds to a cause, in this case was a camp for kids battling cancer. And that was much more valuable than me writing a check. So that's how I show up. I bring my expertise, my connections, my talent, my experience over many years, and my ability to see things differently because I sometimes think that thinking outside the box usually is an easier place to find a solution. So that's how I show up.
Anyone that knows Howie believes in what he just said, right? I think it's not only an ability to see things differently, but a resourcefulness that you just don't see around with everyone, right? You've got a way of turning around a situation, seeing both the positive and the potential, like very few people around. And I think that's one of the things you didn't mention that you bring to the organizations that you're part of. So let me ask you about your leadership philosophy, right? So at the end of the day, the podcast is called Practical Leadership. We're going to get down to something very practical, but let's start by understanding your mindset, your philosophy when it comes to leadership in working with and through others. What have you learned about yourself when it comes to that?
Well, Let's address the leadership aspect, and to do that, you have to sort of unravel all those things that people think about as a definition of a leader and unpack it and identify it in the core for what it is. I used to think that it was a natural goal of people to become a leader. Who doesn't want to become a leader? I only realized later on that most people would much rather be a passenger on a bus and go on the tour and have somebody tell them when to get off, what to look at, what the history was of it, and they don't want to do their own research. Why? Because it takes time, it takes energy. And if you're a leader, you're actually putting yourself out there, because if you talk about it, you must be the expert. And somebody's always looking to find something that you said to be erroneous, to call you out on it. So it's much safer to be a follower, or to be, let's call it a spectator, right? So you're at a football game, 22 people are on the field and 80,000 people are in the stands. And that's where people rather be. You get to drink beer, you get to yell, you get to throw popcorn, you get to take a break, you don't get hit, you're not sore, you don't break an arm, you don't break a, shoulder blade, whatever it is. And so it's much easier to not be a leader. But for some people, I don't think they choose it. I don't think people wake up and say, you know what, I want to be a leader. I think what happens is you have these leadership qualities and instincts, and you can't help yourself. People who are in business, entrepreneurs, as I am, the most successful ones found a problem that bugged the heck out of them, and they had to fix it, even if it didn't make financial sense, even if they had to spend 20 hours a day working on it. Because that's what they do. And that's how I see really leadership being. It's not, oh, okay, now it's your turn to be the leader. Now it's your turn and let's all take turns. Most people don't want it, and I understand why.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed from your leadership approach is you're not a wait and see person. You're a go take action person. You get your hands dirty. You in many ways lead by example, right? You're bringing other people into your vision of what can be. You always talk about how fun it's going to be, how good it's going to be, and you energize people into being able to see things kind of the way that you see them, kind of the way that you perceive them, and want them to get involved. And ultimately, your activity, right? Your actions speak louder than any words. Did you as kind of as you're saying, did you decide like, hey, that's the way that I can lead, that's the way that that somebody should lead? Or why that approach? Was there anything you learned about that said that's how you have to do it, or that's just what came natural to you?
It came natural to me, but also it was an overcompensation for what I was inferior at. So I was never a top student. I wasn't even, I made the top 97% of my graduating class possible by pushing up the bottom. So I knew it wasn't going to be through intellect. It wasn't going to be through my ability to speak. It wasn't going to be through my ability to gather the troops and charge them. I'm certainly not the bravest one in the bunch, but it's not as difficult when you get your hands dirty, and when and people recognize, they'll recognize the effort, and people reward the effort much more so than the outcome. When you say a player has heart, that means they tried hard. It didn't mean that they got a triple double. Stats are great, and certainly that's what's measurable, but what's not measurable is the passion that people have, the energy with which they put forward. That's usually not rewarded. There's not really a plaque for that. But I think ultimately, at least for me, that's what makes life worth living. If you're involved, if you're in the game, and you don't have to be a pro athlete. There's scrimmages going on all the time, and the big opportunities, don't come around that often, right? To score the winning field goal and win the championship. But the little opportunities to advance the ball, to complete a pass, those kinds of opportunities, they present themselves daily. It's just whether or not we have our eyes open to them. And so for me, in terms of leadership, it's like leadership is the way for me. That's the way to life. That's the way to happiness. That's why I always tell people, yes, it's fun, it's exciting, it's unpredictable, and we all need unpredictability, maybe even more so than we need predictability. And when you talk about resourcefulness, I mean, I remember you and I went to go see Tony Robbins in Dallas, and one of the things that stuck with me out of the 4 days and 37 hours of content was that most people don't lack resources. They'll tell you that they don't have the right skin color or the right last name or the right nationality, and they didn't learn the language or whatever it happens to be, lack of resources. And Tony Robbins said it's almost never a lack of resources. It's almost always a lack of resourcefulness. So how do people find the way to be resourceful other than by getting your hands dirty and by getting involved?
There you go, right? So get involved, get your hands dirty, because that allows you to see those opportunities. That allows you to see what others can't, what you can't figure out theoretically in the boardroom. You can only see those opportunities when you're in the field. And then you're not shy to take them on. You're not shy to make mistakes, and you're not shy or even apologetic about the outcomes, right? Because you're leading with heart, you're leading with passion, you're leading with compassion for those that you're helping and serving. And I think those are all traits of a great leader, right? Because a lot of these things end up benefiting you as an individual, but end up first having an impact, a positive impact in all of those people that you serve.
Yeah. Well, back to karma, even if they positively impact me or the donor, that's not why you do it. That is an unintended consequence. That's a byproduct. Because back to karma, karma knows if you do something genuinely for the benefit of others, or if you're doing it only to make contacts, only to make money. The world doesn't work that way. It doesn't reward you for stuff like that. Certainly in the short run, it does. In the long run, it doesn't. And my idea of legacy is what you do while you're alive, not what you leave behind. So
I'm going to let you repeat that.
Okay. So
legacy is
what you do while you're on earth, because earth is a place to do. Heaven, the afterworld, is a place to be. You don't have your physical attributes anymore. You can only be. You can float around. Your soul can be around. It can be an energy, whatever it happens to be, but you can no longer do. So while you have your physical attributes, you got to do something. And as you do something, that becomes a much more meaningful legacy than leaving millions of dollars to name a building after you that people are going to walk into that nobody's going to know who you are.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm getting excited here about our next section, because you've got calls from people not only in San Antonio but all over the country, inviting you to their boards, inviting you to their nonprofits, inviting you to their events. And I want you to tell us a little bit about your approach when you decide to go and help one of these multiple organizations that, wants to get the whole Howie experience. What is your mindset? What is your approach? What's your process? Well, what do you do? Why are all these people after you?
Well, first and foremost, I learned a new word that I didn't know existed up until right before the pandemic started. So 2019, I decided that 2020 was going to be my year of simplification. And I learned how to meditate from my former monk, who was a US ambassador to the United Nations. And he taught me how to meditate. And one of my meditations, other than thinking about all the things I needed to do and this and that, but in my mind, I had this epiphany that 2020 would become my year of simplification. Okay. So I picked up a new word in my vocabulary, in my vernacular, and that word is no. So I didn't know it existed. I used to say yes to everything. And then I decided I was going to say no. But I first started by saying no to things that I already had. So at the time, I had 4 businesses. So I said no to 3 of them. One of them, after 17 years, I decided to stop doing it. The other ones, I had partners. I decided to sell my interest. And that was it. And I was going to go into 2020 with 1 business so I could, sustain my world's poorest philanthropist, continue to work, pay for kids' braces, etc. But I was going to spend more time doing nonprofit stuff, but only the things that found me, not things that people ask me to, or that I read about it, there had to be some kind of connection, some spark that just happened. I didn't know that the pandemic was going to hit. Then 3 months later, all of a sudden this thing happens, and my world got really simplified. Business was down, kids were at home, we were no longer driving to martial arts classes and things like that. And I started finding all these injustices. I found people who I saw homeless people in a different way. And I saw people that were homeless that lived near my house. So I started making sandwiches, dropping them off, talking to them, asking them why wouldn't they go to a shelter. Then they talked to me about feeling like lepers, that people wouldn't even roll down the windows to give them a buck because they thought, because they were going to get coronavirus from them. And so these causes kind of find me, Max. I mean, it's hard to explain. So I say yes to things that find me at the right time that they find me, not so much somebody asking me, hey, you'd be great. I turned down quite a few offers. And it's not like turning down a movie role for $30 million. They're asking me to donate more of my time, or they give me some honorarium. So it's easy to turn down when they're asking you for a lot of your time. But it has more to do with how do I feel about the cause, and how do I feel about the people who ask me? But more importantly, how do I feel about the people that are being served by this, let's say, cause or nonprofit? That is really where the rubber meets the road. That's where I really make my decision. But by the way, here's a little tip for your viewers that might be thinking like, oh, you know what? I ask people to be on my board, and maybe I shouldn't ask this way. The way not to ask people to be on your board is, and I've gotten this before plenty of times. Hey, Howie, listen, we see you on social media. You're very active. We know you're involved with this. The Camp because it's cancer, Camp Discovery. You got you covered, this collection drive for the homeless for 25 years. We would love for you to be on our board. And don't worry, we only meet like once a month, and we have a Zoom option, and it lasts for less than an hour. And sometimes like twice a year, we'll do a little retreat, and then we bring in food, lunch, and everything. And it takes like no more than 2 hours. Don't ask that way. Because one, you're not inspiring me. You're not telling me what you're passionate about. You're telling me like how not boring the meetings are, which tell me that the meetings are boring and that you don't even want to be there. Tell me about how you're changing the world. And I'm much more likely to get on board with a small cause that can make a big impact than I am on a big organization that is going to make probably a big impact, but my participation is not necessarily going to make a difference. So if you need somebody to rubber stamp something and just get on the board, then that's not me. But like you said, if I can come in and mix things up a little bit, I'm in.
So it's interesting because in this last section, you've given us a lot of the answer, right? Which is you come in and you bring in a lot of excitement, and you bring in a lot of energy, and you bring in a lot of purpose, and you bring in a lot of clarity in the communication, right? And it sounds like maybe a lot of these events, nonprofits, other organizations really benefit from that spark, from that energy, from that push in momentum, because the level of passion that you bring to the table is palpable. And I think it's one of those things where if you're on a board and Howie shows up, you either step up your game and you double down, or you want to roll into a ball and kind of disappear of the screen, because you kind of leave no room for anyone lacking that excitement and that energy.
Yeah. Well, or I leave and they're like, who the hell invited Howie? Who is this guy anyway? Who does he think he is? I get that. I'm okay with that. I'm not, it's not that I don't care. Obviously, people want to be liked, whatever, but most people want three things. Okay. They want their opinion to matter. They want to know that they're making an impact, and they want to be entertained. So when I do something in nonprofit, I don't invite people that I don't think are going to give an opinion that's worthy. If they don't know and they don't care about it, I don't want them there. One. Two, if they're not interested and I don't give them the opportunity to make a difference and to make an impact, they also don't need to be there. And I, as maybe the organizer, if I'm not keeping them entertained, I know they're not coming back.
So you give people a voice, you remind them that what they have to say matters, and you make it fun.
And I make it fun. And I give them a platform or a runway so that whatever they participate in has the potential to make a big impact, because then they know that their time mattered.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah. So I've been on boards where they give us everything on paper. Somebody, the president or CEO or whatever, speaks for the entire hour, and the last 15 minutes they might open it up to discussion, but you have to raise your hand, but they don't have time for everybody, and then they just ask you to vote on these 6 things, and they need it rubber stamped. That infuriates me. And then I'm usually the guy that's like, well, I go, just real quick, I go, I'm sorry, did you want somebody just to come in here and rubber stamp your ideas, or are you actually looking to make a difference in the community that you serve? Because I see a lot of things that you guys have done wrong and that I think can be fixed. Now, can I fix them all? I can't. But as a layperson, if you're asking me to donate my time and my money, I'm going to tell you why I don't want to do either. And it's because I feel like you guys are stale, and this is what you've done all the time. And you say you're a community organization, yet you're closed, 6 days a week. You're only open for half an hour on Saturday. And then they'll say, "Oh, was there a question in there?" I'm like, "Yeah. Why do you do all those things if you're a community organization?" Okay. And then usually somebody will come and ask. But and so I rather, if I'm going to bring somebody in, I'm ready to implement their suggestions, if they're good ones and if they're better than mine, and especially if they're willing to run with the ball. But if you're just going to sit on and give me your, be on my, what I call the you should subcommittee, where people tell me like, hey, you know what you should do? I say, you know what you should do? You should come and sit on my committee, and let's do it together. I'm happy to hand it to you. But most people are like, well, I don't know. I don't have the time, and I don't have the energy, and I don't know. It's back to resources, right? Lack of resources.
Excellent. So I just want to do a recap of this, because I think you're one of those guys that just are an unconscious competent, right? That's a very positive thing for the audience to know, right? You don't know how you do it necessarily. You just go out there and do a great job. I don't necessarily see Howie as a systems guy, right? That's going to pull out a document and say, this is how you do it. But within that brilliance of yours, there is a process. And I just want the audience to really kind of get a summary understanding of what the Howie experience is, right? So first and foremost, challenge the status quo and rock the boat, right? If somebody's not going to be comfortable with that, then they shouldn't have you there, right? If there's people that are not going to be comfortable with that, then either you shouldn't be there or they shouldn't be there. Second, you give people a voice, right? And make sure that they're speaking up, that they are sharing their ideas, and that they recognize that they can have a huge impact, right? That they can make a difference. So no voice is too small, no effort goes unseen or undervalued. You get people engaged, right? All those people that have ideas or thoughts, you transform them into action-oriented individuals, which then makes them feel good, and then they get to contribute to the well-being of the cause, whatever that might be. And ultimately, they are feeling inspired, they are feeling connected. And the last but not least, one of my favorite things is they have fun, right? If you're going to be hanging out with Howie, if you're going to be around him, it's going to be fun. So that in a nutshell seems like Howie's formula for success.
I like it.
Did I miss anything? Is there something that I missed here? Is there any tool that you use, any process that you follow where you're like, hey, look, let me share this with you guys? Or are you and I going to work offline to put this together in a template so we can share with the audience? So go to practicalleadership.com, practicalleadership.com, 1L. You're going to be able to watch this and other podcasts, and you're going to be able to download the tools and resources that our different leaders are providing for the community to become better leaders today. So, Howie,
All right. So in terms of tools, I'll take you up on your offer that we'll work on these tools offline and we'll upload them. I like the ones you came up with so far. I would say one tool you should have in your arsenal is a thick skin. If you're going to get involved with anything having to do with leadership, practical leadership, nonprofit leadership, etc., you almost always have to have a thick skin. I don't like speaking in absolutes, but it certainly helps plenty to have a thick skin. What do I mean by that? Don't let things bother you. You are going to immediately alienate people. You're not doing it for that reason, but you can't execute change without rattling somebody's cage, right? So if you ask people, how many people love change? Almost nobody's going to raise their hand. But if you ask the same group of people 10 minutes later, who wants their lives to improve? Everybody raises their hand. Well, what do you think change is? It's going from where you are to improvement. And so in order to help improve an organization, they have to go through change, and change is uncomfortable for most people. What you walk into an organization, you have some ideas. What is the first thing they tell you? Well, Howie, that's all very nice, but this is the way we've always done things. We don't need to change anything. It's worked just fine. It's worked okay. It's been good. And Max knows the opposite of good is great. It's not bad. It's great. So you want to keep doing things good, then by all means, enjoy. See you later. I'll take my M&Ms and my water and I'll leave your boardroom. Or we can sit here and talk about how we're going to change for the sake of improvement. You have a thick skin. Doesn't matter what people say. Doesn't matter what people think. You got to win them over with your accomplishments. And then after that, I would say that don't be afraid of one of my probably biggest tools or assets that I have is that I almost welcome not succeeding sometimes. I learn the most from it. I used to be addicted to winning. I couldn't stand to lose until I had enough losses that I recognized that I got a lot better at winning and winning at the right things by having some big losses. And it wasn't until I had those losses that I learned that lesson. So if you don't play, you can't lose. And if you don't lose, you can't win big. So don't sit idly by.
So I got a lot out of that, and I have a few more questions for you. I just want to point out something that I think it can go undervalued many times, but I believe it's part of the transformation that you help deliver, which is using the correct language, right? So you were giving the example of who wants to change versus who wants their lives to be better. And even using the correct language can position yourself, right? You can have the correct mindset going into an opportunity, which brings less negative energy or brings less fear and actually brings more positive expectations, better outcomes to the forefront. So using the correct language. Welcoming failure. What a concept. Recognizing that in order to win bigger, you've got to lose some, because learning comes from the failures, not from success. And a lot of organizations that are doing well miss out on the opportunity of being excellent, right? From going to good to great because they're doing well. Yeah. And your big idea is well is okay, good is okay, but don't take away that opportunity of being great. Don't get comfortable. I know you talk a lot about the law of familiarity, and we're not going to get too far into it because that might take a whole other hour.
Right. Yes.
But let's go back to thick skin, if I may.
Yeah.
How do you get to the point where you build this thick skin, where you don't take things personal, where you don't care about what people say? I think that's one of the most challenging things that we have as humans.
Yeah. Well, I do care. And when I hear people say that they don't care, it means that they do care, probably to a higher degree than I care. So I care, but it doesn't change my outcome. It doesn't change my involvement. It doesn't Somebody else's opinion of me is irrelevant in the sense that I have a pretty good idea of either who I am or who I'd like to become. And so when somebody has an opinion of me, especially when they give that opinion out freely to others in a negative way, it has the opposite effect. It makes me want to perform even better and quote unquote prove them wrong. It's not why I do it. It just gives me a little bit of extra rocket fuel. But having a thick skin, man, in this world, you go down in flames if you don't have a thick skin. Everything bothers you. And if you're looking to be offended, the world is ready to start the minute you wake up, the minute you watch the news, the minute you get a text, the minute you start driving. You might end up focusing only on the traffic, only on the fact that there was no place to park, only on the fact that your favorite brand of toothpaste was out when you get to the grocery store. But you don't then focus on the fact that you have a car and you have air conditioning. You got to listen to 70s rock on the way to a store that has full shelves again compared to the first few months of the pandemic, right? So what are you focused on? Are you going to focus on those things that are personally insulting to you, or that you feel like things are happening negatively for you, or do you think, or they're happening negatively to you, or are you focused on the fact that the earth and life and everything in it happens for you as a lesson, as a way of you stepping up? I mean, how do you build up any fortitude and strength and muscle, figuratively or literally, if you don't have some resistance? You cannot move forward without any kind of resistance. To walk, you have to lift your foot and move one and place one foot right after the other, to walk upstairs. But if you're like, oh God, now I got to walk up the stairs again because I left my keys. I was like, oh, well, you're going to have a long, miserable life. I look at all that as positive and part of my conditioning, if you will.
How do you get someone that is currently focused on the negative, that is focused on their brand of toothpaste being out, to all the positive, wonderful things? What's the process there? How do you help yourself, or how do you help another human being transform their perspective?
Yeah. There's a bunch of ways. Okay. One of them is disconnect from the outcome. Okay. Just because you thought you'd score 7 goals doesn't mean that you're going to score 7 goals. If you won, if you had fun, if you had whatever, there's a lot more ways of keeping score than just who won the game or how much money you have in your bank account. You're never going to be satisfied if you have a particular, very clear cut and clearly defined goal and you don't achieve it. You're always going to be depressed because you didn't achieve it. But if you're disconnected from the outcome, who cares? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the process? Did you learn something? Did you meet some new people at the game, even though, you know what I mean? Did you get invited to the after party? Whatever it happens to be, it's a little bit of carpe diem, go with the flow. Of course, have goals. I'm not saying don't have goals, but just go with the flow a little bit. It doesn't have to be the way you imagined it. It doesn't have to be that size toothpaste and that brand at all times. Try something else. You might end up liking that the 3 different flavored toothpaste with a stripe is like now your new favorite. But you don't know that if you use the same toothpaste you used since you were 3 years old. You're never going to know. Variety, spice of life.
That's also a lot right there. Let me talk about the first part that I really liked, which is disassociate your outcomes from your self-worth.
Oh, yes.
You are not your outcomes. So if you didn't score the 7 goals, you feel bad about yourself, you feel unworthy, you don't feel like you're good enough, you're going to take it hard on yourself. Instead, value yourself on things you can control. Did you give it your all, right? Where did you give it your best? Did you sweat? Did you learn? Did you have fun? In valuing that and putting worth in that. Also, I think that's something that you do really well is you value and appreciate those things that surround the main activity. And that's pretty much in everything that I've seen you do, right? It's enjoying everything surrounding the steak as much as the steak itself, and focusing on that as well, and embracing when your expectations don't meet reality, and seeing that as part of the journey or part of the story, versus it has to be this way, otherwise there's all this meaning and association to it, which makes me feel bad. So embracing it and learning about the opportunities that come from the unexpected, and even in Howie's words, the undesired.
Right. And you said the unexpected, and early on in your kind introduction of me, you used the word extraordinary. It happens to be one of my favorite words, and I'll tie it back into my philosophy that in order to live an extraordinary life, you must be willing to destroy the law of familiarity. And when I say extraordinary, I don't mean better, I don't mean richer, I don't mean more famous, I mean outside the ordinary. Most people, as we identified, are followers, are waiting to be told what to do, are looking to criticize something because it wasn't how they expected it to be. And I say, come to the other side, come to the extraordinary side. You don't have to be better or faster or richer. You just have to be different than everybody else. And how are you different? Well, if most people sign up and donate online and give a little check or pay, give a little donation, why not call and show up and go volunteer and play with the kids at the shelter? That would be extraordinary. Most people don't do that. That would make you outside the ordinary. But to be extraordinary and to have an extraordinary life, you have to destroy the law of familiarity. You can't do what you've always done, because if you've always done it, you're going to always get the same results. And not only that, if you do what society always tells you to do, you're going to get the results that everybody else gets. And most people are unhappy. They're unhappy with their job. They're unhappy with their lives. They're unhappy with the weather. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's too rainy, it's too sunny. Oh my God, it's too sunny. Now my sunglasses and I'm polar. You know what I mean?
Okay, so let's see if we can kind of tie all these different wonderful ideas up, right? Because we've talked about mindset, we've talked about philosophy, we've talked about some spirituality, some facts of life. There's been a lot. Our audience is full of leaders and people that want to have a positive impact in the lives of others, people that want to do and want to create great things, people that recognize that they can't do it all themselves. They need to surround themselves with other people to do great things, to accomplish great goals. So they're going to have listened to this podcast, and they're going to go home. They're going to download the template that we're going to be building for them, practicalleadership.com with one L. And then they're going to get this piece of advice from Howie, which is something they can go do tomorrow with their teams. What is this extraordinary thing you believe leaders can do immediately? They can go and sit down with their teams and do tomorrow that is going to help them be better leaders immediately.
Okay. I'm going to answer that in two little parts. Number one, your paradigm shift is going to be this. Instead of today saying, I really should do more nonprofit. I hear that from a lot of friends. When I get older, when I put my last kid through college, when I retire, then I'm really going to donate a lot of my time and do a lot more nonprofit. Okay. Here's your paradigm shift. You're going to wake up tomorrow, and I'm hypnotizing now everybody that's watching this. You're going to wake up and you're going to feel as though you are going to feel ashamed for not being able to not doing those things that you've always thought about doing. Now you're going to feel ashamed. And this is what I feel guilty and ashamed if I don't do something that's in my capacity and my wherewithal to do. I feel ashamed that I am on this earth and I've been given these gifts and these abilities, and I let them go to waste. That's your paradigm shift. And what you're going to do with your team is it's going to be a new you. You're going to find something that you're passionate about, a cause. You had a family member that had a disease, or a cousin, or or a friend that died or got sick, or something tragic happened to somebody that you know, okay? And you're going to start thinking about that person. And you're going to think about, wow, could I have prevented that? And if the answer is no, are there people who could have prevented that? The answer will absolutely be yes. And then you're going to go find those people, that organization that could have prevented that, and you're going to call them. And then you're going to say, hey, I'd like to bring my team over to learn more about what you guys do, because our company, our organization wants to get behind you guys. I don't know what it is. I have no idea, but I know that I'm not going to figure it out by sitting in my office. So my team of 7 people and I want to go to your corporate headquarters, your nonprofit, and we want to take a little tour, and we want to sit down with you guys, and you're going to tell us how you see us getting involved, because we are a company that makes these widgets and we sell $10 million worth a year, and how can we help you? And we're coming with an open mind. And that's what you're going to do. And then you're going to find that, you're going to present it to your team and say, I already called and set up a meeting, and we're going next Friday. And then the team's going to go, well, what are we going to do there? Well, I don't know. Well, how do you know? Why'd you set up the meeting? Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. And then you're going to take a tour. Then you're going to start talking. Then they're going to tell you, and then they're going to see a need. Then you're going to say like, oh my God, we can produce these and manufacture these. And it's going to come out, and you're going to find it. And then you're going to get your hands dirty. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, wow. And then your team's going to have meaning, and your team's going to be like, oh my God, I love working for this woman, this guy, my boss who took me to this thing, because now I feel meaningful because I was able to help this nonprofit and this cause. Then they're going to find a cause that they care about, and then they're going to go get involved. Then you're going to find out that one of your employees does that, and then you're going to go and help their cause too.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you want people to get uncomfortable about the fact that they're not doing enough for others.
Yes.
As part of their humanity, right? As part of their experience of being human. Yeah. So get uncomfortable.
Your ticket to ride.
Get uncomfortable, because that's going to get you moving. Second, think about a cause that is meaningful to you. And third, let kind of the universe guide you in terms of what is going to happen. So don't build expectations. Don't define a success criteria. Don't have any goals in mind.
Disconnect from the outcome, as we said.
Yeah, just do. Just be present. Just present yourself, which is one of Howie's big subjects, right? Just show up. Show up, be open, and let whatever happen. But you'll be surprised at how amazing things will happen from that. That is going to lead to greater engagement from your team, greater engagement from your team members and their surroundings, which will ultimately contribute and help for the benefit of the whole community. So get uncomfortable, show up, don't have expectations,
and let the universe guide you, and it will. It guides you. Look, if it can guide you in the wrong direction, it could also work in the reverse and guide you in the right direction. But you have to put yourself in front of those opportunities, right? If you put yourself in front of a cheesecake and a beer, that's going to be what you do. But if you put yourself in front of a nonprofit that's worthwhile, then that's where the opportunity and where you'll be guided as to what to do.
Excellent, Howie. So to move on to our next section here, what is something you're excited about or looking forward to that is going to be happening, you're going to be working on, you're going to be doing in the next few months?
I have a few irons in the fire. For example, this Thursday, we're going to CRIT, Children's Rehabilitation Institute, and I'm bringing the Rafael 73 court from Fiesta to meet all the kids from CRIT, which is a rehabilitation center for kids with physical and mental disabilities. And then in a couple of weeks, we have the big concert for the Cesar Chavez March and Legacy Foundation concert. And then after that, I'm doing an event called Heroes for Humanity, where we raise money from companies who want to donate to this campaign of anti-hate, anti-discrimination, anti-Semitism, campaign to educate and communicate with 18,000 kids over the next 12 months at the Holocaust Museum. And then later on in the fall, I'm co-chairing a gala for for Crit, and then or participating in one, I should say, doing the marketing for it. And then I'm going to chair a gala for Ferrari Kid, which is an organization for kids battling cancer, where we give them rides in exotic cars, take them on shopping sprees, and then we do a big gala and fundraiser, and then we make these kids feel like the rock stars that they are. So there's a lot of fun stuff. And in between there, I'm involved with probably 10 or 15 other events, nonprofits, galas that I'm not in a quote unquote leadership position, but a self-imposed leadership position. I come in with my ideas, but not only the you shoulds, I implement the things I tell them they should do. And I go try to make them happen. It's always my goal.
If there's one thing I wish for our audience, is for them to wake up with the enthusiasm and excitement for what they're working on, for what they are doing, like Howie does. Looking forward to the ways that you're going to be helping and contributing, and the impact that you're going to be making with people and others. When I think about engagement, that's the definition that comes to mind. Share the video with others. I want them to see what that engagement and energy and passion looks like, and ultimately what success means. You describe yourself as the world's poorest philanthropist. I describe Howie as the world's richest excitement and joy for life and joy for doing good that there is out there. So Howie, before we wrap up today, what is one of the most important things that you've learned out of your life? Or what is this big thought or idea that you'd like the audience to keep as we wrap up today's podcast?
Meaning and happiness are found in serving others. So it's right up there on the top of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So everything that most people are looking for is right up there at the pinnacle. And if life has taught me anything, is that leadership and success and accessibility and all those things that people seek, happiness, are found at the top of the mountain, and that the hike is always uphill. The path to get there is different for everybody, but it's always uphill.
Thank you, Howie. Just a reminder, you can go to practicalleadership.com, download the template that Howie and I are going to build together. It's also going to contain a summary of some of these big ideas. Howie, I'm going to ask you to help me help people get engaged. I know that everybody's going to have in mind, okay, what are some of the organizations that I can be part of? What are some of the nonprofits that need some help? You've motivated me, you've engaged me. How can I help? We're going to help them with the first step. You can download the guide. The guide's going to actually have some of the nonprofits, some of the phone numbers, and some of the immediate activity that you can take to get you more engaged and your team engaged with this. And before I wrap up, don't forget the typical subscribe, like, that sort of thing. If you could comment, if you could share, if you could email, who else would you like to have in the Practical Leadership podcast? Who do you want to hear from? Who do you want to learn the secrets that they use to lead others, to have success, to have an impact? Send those over, as we're going to make sure we find some time to have great conversations with them as well. In the meantime, get out there, make some positive impact, make some positive change, lead others, put yourself out there, and it'll be worth the journey. Thank you so much, Howie, for being with us today.
Awesome. I had a great time. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.